I'm Jennifer Cole, Executive Director of the Metro Arts Commission, and I welcome you to the dedication of Citizen, our newest piece of public art in Nashville. Today is a celebration of our city's rich and diverse culture of art. Public art is meant to be an expression of time, of place, and of the hearts and minds of a city. Citizen is an interesting, dynamic, and beautiful addition to our public art collection in Nashville. Its place here in the Public Square Park represents an important gathering place for our community. It is my pleasure to introduce world-renowned artist Thomas Sayer, to have him explain more about this historic plaza and how it inspired the creation of Citizen. Please welcome Thomas Sayer.
How do you do serious public art? It takes two things. It takes a good artist. I'll let you decide about that. You already have decided to some extent. I was the chosen one. Thank you for that. But of equal importance, it takes a community that's willing to put forth the kind of leadership it takes to pull something like this off. It doesn't come by happenstance. This has been 4 years in the making. There has been thick and thin along the way. Some of us bled a little along the way. And yet the city of Nashville persevered and allowed this piece to happen.
I felt early on that it should be about the act of being a citizen, which we all are, and I believe that ought to be participatory, and there's lots of different ways of being a citizen, and one of the ways is to point the way, and that takes many forms. Emblazoned over in these two towers are the information about the two founders, actually from North Carolina, who crawled up the bank and said, "This is a nice place," and hence Nashville was formed. They pointed the way. A lot of people since have pointed the way in publishing, in music, in universities, in the life of Nashville. And some of it happened on this site. For instance, the heroic Fisk University students who came up these courthouse steps right here and addressed the white mayor of a southern city and said, "Look, integration is coming, and we can do it in a polite and civilized and dignified way, or we can go the way of many other cities in this country." And to the credit of all parties, pretty much Nashville integrated in a very graceful and civilized way. That's a different kind of pointing. It's sort of pointing at your face, but it was real effective. And here was the site I was working on, and I knew then what to do, that these needed to be pointing figures. There was a national or beyond, at least national competition, and actually the terms of that competition were to build a piece on this strip right here, the so-called quiet zone. This was before the park was finished. All the finalists saw the park in construction, and I was selected with a design that once the park was done, and actually 2 years later than the piece was supposed to be here for various internal to the city reasons, over 2 years later I said, let's all stand on the park and evaluate whether this original initial design is the right one. And I think to the credit of this city, the mayor and many, everyone was willing to do that, and I felt strongly that the original plan, for a lot of reasons, was not as strong as it should be. One of the reasons was these trees are much denser and they're loved. And so the idea of cutting half of them down, which was part of the my original plan, which was accepted, I thought, you know, that's not a good idea. The space is smaller. The relationship of the water is not exactly as I envisioned it, and these big pylons, granite things, separated you from the water. Another issue was the amount of ambient light. As you may recall, the original piece had a significant lighting, nighttime aspect to it, and there's so much light here that the subtlety of that, I think, would have been lost. And this is a very elaborate design. There's the landscape architect and architects involved designed a lot of detailing here, and it's very elaborate, especially when you look down on it. So to fit in was a key, and not to take over or be anomalous, but to fit into that plan and actually add something. Spatially was one of the issues. Another was to try to add something that was animated, that would move, would be participatory, to get the public to engage was a second big issue. Stainless and glass, it's very controlled from a craft point of view, and there are really three tacks or paths. One is the mechanical and structural system. There's a huge pipe that holds everything up, that bolts to the foundation. And in that is gears, gearboxes, and a brake, and all the mechanism to ultimately make the glass turn. The second piece is the glass itself, which married with a steel mast that in turn hooks to the mechanical system below. And that was a different path made by a company in Louisville called Architectural Glass Arts. The mechanical system was primarily built with Tim Sobolak, who's here. And then we did what we call the pants, which is the stainless steel decorative shroud, if you will, that rhymes with these columns right here on your courthouse. And they bolted into the column system below. Really, the fourth path is the site work, which is the foundation and then the paving. Ultimately, it receives the benches. Which was yet another element, precast benches that are designed to rhyme with the limestone all around this park and your courthouse. Well, we rehearsed all that we could. We knew that the pants fit with the structural column. In fact, we shipped that intact, so that was kind of out of the way. And that had its own challenges. They were made in two different parts of North Carolina and brought together, and would they fit? And yes, they did, but it took some doing. One of the big challenges here is, while this looks like a park and is a park, it is also a roof. There are 8 stories of cars parked below here, and that meant we couldn't get any equipment out here to speak of, other than a pickup truck and this very light lift. So every move of erecting this had to be very lightweight or from afar, and hence the enormous 265-ton crane that had to fly out over 230 feet, that's a lot of, it's a lot to orchestrate that. Lane closings, people kept away, and not to mention the expense, which I wasn't really figuring on. We thought we'd at least get 2 setups much closer, and that was true to the west, but not to the east. And so we ended up being forced really into this one pick situation, which made it faster, but it was very expensive to set up and then to do. Glass, a 12-foot figure with a 12-foot arm span is technically a pretty challenging thing, and the structural part we had a lot of trouble with until actually the guy who knows the least about glass, which is me, said, well, what if we stitch it together with stainless steel things I've seen other glass projects use? And everybody went, that's a good idea. And it actually worked. And the engineering became much, much more solid as soon as we let that, which I think visually is a great part of this. Those wires and those little kind of hockey puck fittings that receive the wires and allow them to be tensioned are really interesting looking, that come and go for instance, far away you don't see the wires at all, you just see these dots. And up close you see the linear element, and that's all, I think, to our advantage. We now have to get the mechanical system to work as it was designed, which we will today. We have the lights to have fire, and at night when they're lit, I think we'll see a very interesting result there. But what light does to it, it becomes like the earth castings, where the passage of the sun throughout the day and the seasons makes for a magical and seemingly unpredictable dance of sparkle, which is true right now, looking at these, both the glass in a very different way, the sparkle versus the column base. When you then move that glass, which also has stainless on it, by this crank, then it's a whole nother interaction with nature. Humans are changing the planes of the glass.
So it is my pleasure, honor, delight, and with great gratefulness in my heart that I offer you this piece and thank the leadership that it took over 4 years for this piece to get here. Thank you very much, Nashville.